I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guests into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. Welcome, Krystle.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I mean, I am living my best life.
Oh.
That's my go-to saying whenever somebody asks me what I'm
What
doing.
does that actually mean then?
That means that even if I'm not living my best life, I'm putting it out in the universe that I'm living my best life.
Living your best life?
No matter what, that energy is going to come to me.
You're going to come back? Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah.
So Sunday morning, what does Krystle typically do on a Sunday morning?
I attempt to sleep in, but with an almost 2-year-old, that doesn't happen. And essentially, it's just literally our routine of every day. Wake up, have breakfast, sit down, attempt to fight the boy to eat breakfast and not have to try and entertain him in some way.
Yeah.
And then kind of like the world's our oyster. Do we stay home and try and play? Do we go out to the aquarium for the 15th million time? Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We just play it by ear.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Let's start off with some rapid fires. Let's see how you go.
With my overthinking self? Sure, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So it's rapid fire means the first thing that comes to mind.
There's a lot of voices going on inside. So
I don't know
we'll
if that's a good or a bad thing. All right. What is your favorite store?
Yeah, see, this is where I'm going to be horrible
See,
at this
no.
game.
So I'm not saying what's your favorite food store, just favorite store, period.
And I immediately was like, does she mean candy store? Food
See what
store,
I'm saying?
Clothing store? I
Okay.
don't shop here in Bermuda. Overseas?
Okay.
What's
favorite
going on?
clothing store.
Clothing store? I'd probably say Old Navy.
Okay. And what's your favorite breakfast meal?
Breakfast meal, I love French toast and pancakes.
Okay. And what was your favorite subject in school?
Math.
Oh, really?
Yes, I could rapid fire on that one.
Okay. And then what's your favorite animal? I know this.
Cheetah.
What?
Sorry, ma'am. It's not a household cat because I have a cat. No, it's a
you
cheetah.
have cats.
I don't need that to be in the public. So my favorite animal is a cheetah.
Interesting.
I
What was
know.
your first job?
Ooh, my first job was I was a nursery school assistant in like the first age bracket. I think it's a 2-year-old. Over at, I don't even know where it was called, but it was over at First Baptist Church in Devonshire.
And who do you text the most?
Ooh, who do I text the most? Probably my best friend Sabrina.
Okay. And then who would you say is your hero?
Hero. Probably my mom.
Oh, mommy.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a lot of influences, but yeah.
Why mom?
Mom, probably because, I mean, my grandmother came from the Azores to Bermuda, had an arranged marriage, had no family here, had 3 daughters. I believe my grandfather passed away when, like, my mom and my aunt were, like, 2, 3. So then, and then my grandmother was just very old school, very traditional, very hard. And so my mom is a very wild child, free thinker, very social. And she ended up having me by herself, had certain plans for me going to a private school or certain levels of stuff. And she had to do that all on her own. She worked about at one point 3-4 jobs all at once. And she really advocated for me. Even when I went to university, like she was the one really driving me to do scholarships. I feel like how she raised me, I knew to a certain degree there was essentially struggle, but I was very naive. Like the fact that she pushed for the scholarship and I was like, I'll just show up and do my thing. Like now that I look back, I was like, well, that was a bit naive.
Yeah.
So yeah, she only has her high school diploma, didn't do any university. I remember at one point being young, and she worked as like a cashier over at Collectors Hill, and now she's an executive assistant to one of the CEOs over at AWAC. So like to see her progress, and it's not her comfort to be like continuously growing or like changing jobs or whatever, has been something that has really put a fire in me, I guess.
Yeah. You learned, I think I can say this, but your work ethic definitely would have had to have come from your mom.
Oh, literally, yeah. Between my mother, my grandmother, and then my mom is a twin, my aunt.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Emily Carroll, she is a twin.
Identical?
No, fraternal.
Okay.
But I feel like they're not, no, they're definitely not. But they look very similar. Yeah, no, it was definitely when they say it takes a village to raise a kid. Yep, those three ladies. It was like a powerhouse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, between my aunt and her hustle, and then when she married my uncle, having that male figure in my life, there was just a lot to sort of aspire to.
And what did your aunt and grandma do?
So my grandmother only spoke Portuguese.
Really?
Yep.
And your Portuguese is so bad.
I mean, thank you for airing that out also to the public. She only spoke Portuguese. She understood English. And then I guess it's just a generational thing and the time of period. When my mother and my aunts came along, they learned Portuguese, but it was very much like you had to speak English. Because I think at that time, being Portuguese was taboo. And so then when my mom had me, my mother isn't really great with discipline. So there was never, you have to speak Portuguese. So I can understand it pretty well. And I'd always be the translator with my grandmother. But when she was younger and was working, she actually worked at Maui. So she was one of the caregivers there. Yeah. And then my aunt, she was essentially a part of, when she because she no longer lives in Bermuda, she worked over at, what is it called now? New York City Bank? In like their...
City, yeah. It's just called City, right?
Yeah, City, yeah. And she just did their like finances, legal, more on like the administrative side of things.
Okay. So tell me about Krystle as a little girl. What did you used to do? What was your favorite thing, I should say?
Ooh, little girl Krystle. I was probably a big pain in the butt to my family because I was an only child. So I had that syndrome where you expect that you get everything. But I remember living in Devonshire with my grandmother and my mom. I used to love playing like pretend house, and I'd have twin babies, I guess trying to pretend that they were my mom and my aunt or whatever. And then after that, I used to love horseback riding, swimming. I was really into art for a period of time. Yeah, I never did any camps because I didn't really like socializing with other kids.
What do you mean you didn't do camps? How do you not do camps growing up?
Because I lived with my grandmother.
Ah, so you had a built-in camp
yes,
person.
I do remember like expressing interest in camps, at which point my mother would sign me up and I would go on the first day and then come home and be like, no, that wasn't for me. I don't like to
But you seem so sociable now.
That comes with time and maturity.
Got it.
That's what that is.
So you would not consider yourself an extrovert?
No. Good Lord, no. No. That is my mother. My mother is the extrovert out of our relationship. We are essentially night and day.
Really?
Yep.
I feel like you have
I have elements.
A little bit.
I have elements of my mother, but if you meet her and then you meet me, you would think maybe we are related as cousins, but not mother and daughter now.
That I could see. Yes. Yeah. Now after meeting your mom now, absolutely.
Yeah, no. She is still childlike at heart.
So how would you say like your mom and your aunt and your grandmother kind of shaped you into wanting to go into your current career field?
They had no influence.
Really?
None. Yep. Nope. None. I went to university and I actually really struggled with what I wanted to do. Initially, I went and I was like, oh, I'm going to be a nursery school teacher. That's what I wanted to do. And then I went out there and I feel like a lot of Bermudians could probably relate to this. You kind of get told like, oh, that's not like the career path that you're going to make money in. So then I was like, cool, I'm not going to be a nursery school teacher. I'll just be like a full teacher because that will be a better route. And I'll just be a math teacher because I love math. So I'll just be a math teacher. And then I kept getting that feedback. So I was like, cool, I'll just do business administration because that at least is a bit broad. And I never really knew what it was that I wanted to do. Like I knew areas that I was really strong with. Like I love helping people. I really enjoy math. I really enjoy art. Like I like to be creative, but I never woke up one day and was like, oh, I definitely want to be in HR. But I actually had a friend who one summer when I was in university, they got fired from their job and it completely like sort of devastated her.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wait, that actually like happens. And yeah, no, I don't ever want to be like in a position where I'm surprised like that. Like,
Yeah.
So I feel like the best position to be in is in HR because then they'll always know. So I will always know, which is not the case. Cause
I was
like,
gonna say,
like if somebody wanted to fire, like then I'm just not going to know about
Yeah.
that. Right. So, but that was my logic at the time. Like I wanted to be in the area that kind of was making the decisions, had the secret intel of stuff. And all of my summer jobs were really like customer service centered. And that was one of the roles that I was like, oh, that still has a level of customer service. And it'll get to a space where I actually then know the customer. So then it's just more relationship based. And I like that idea of things. So it was really to my friend who did not the best job performance and got fired. That's what I can owe my credit to.
To your friend getting fired.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're not going to ask which friend it was, so we're good there.
No. But I'm sure when she listens,
She will know who it is.
Yeah.
So when you began your career, did you ever think that you would end up as like a senior HR manager for the largest broking house in Bermuda?
No.
What did you think? Where did you think you would be?
Deshay, if you ask me right now, where do I see myself in the next 10 years? I have no idea. I just know I don't want to stay. I always want to continuously be doing something, whether it's learning, whether it's growing. I always want more. And I now appreciate that that's a growth mindset. But I never was like, oh, I want to be a senior HR manager, or like even now, oh, I want to be a regional manager or the chief HR officer. Like I don't have that specifically defined in my plan. It's just, I know I want more. I don't want to be complacent in anything that I do.
Yeah. So how do you get more if you're not exactly sure what that looks like?
I have a lot of conversations with people, whether it's on my team, if it's my manager, if it's people I work very closely with. I just have conversations and honestly just take advantage of opportunities as they come.
So, I mean, having the job that you have, you deal with a lot of different personalities. Like, is there ever any resistance from leaders, specifically men sometimes, dealing with a female HR manager that you might see?
Oh, yes, all the time. Now, do they make it clear that it's because you're a female? No, of course not.
Can't do that.
That would be pretty silly and dumb, and they probably wouldn't be in that position then at that point. But no, yeah, there's resistance all the time.
Yeah.
My natural viewpoint or perspective is never to sort of like immediately jump on that rationale. I sort of take the approach of, this is just leaders. Like leaders are just always, unless it's not something that they've created, there's always that element of like you having to plant a seed or like finding the value proposition so that when you're approaching them, they actually agree with you. Like it's like a sales pitch almost.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very much consistent with any sort of strategic leaders. I've encountered it even with women when I'm having conversations around something that is a sensitive or a sticky topic, and you really have to sort of drive home the importance around those items. And like what is the value proposition? So like with Marsh McLennan, we're a global company. So a lot of times I can be like, hey, this is our global philosophy. Like whether or not you agree with it or not, you got to push that to the side. Like this is, if we have our most senior leaders saying X, Y, and Z, then you need to be following X, Y, and Z. Like that's just
got to be in lockstep.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of times I find as I'm interacting with my leaders, it's taking that sort of strategic approach around, if I say X, how are they going to respond? Are they going to push back on me? Okay, if they do, this is the avenue I can take versus not being prepared, because then that doesn't really end up well.
No, I get it. And sometimes in HR, I think people assume what HR professionals kind of do. And in actual fact, you're an advisor.
Oh, yes. I facilitate, I counsel, I provide guidance. I do not make the hiring and firing decisions. That's the business. And once I had that realization, I made it, that's sort of my soapbox saying now, because I would have so many people who knew me and they'd be like, oh, can you get me a job? And I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm not making that call. Like I'm just helping to facilitate the hirings and the firings.
And so what would you say would be the most important thing you've learned in your profession since you've, started working in this field?
There's not one thing that jumps out, but I could probably list off like a handful of items, right? Like being in HR, there's a lot of sensitive information when you're dealing with leadership who do push back. Like in order to create that safe space where you're giving them that feedback and like sort of putting them on a corrected path, there needs to be that level of confidentiality and professionalism so that, they feel safe to have that upfront conversation with you. There's also elements of just recognizing that the world isn't perfect, right? So we're have to push the agenda and push things that might be uncomfortable, whether it's conversation or a plan or whatever the case may be. Like you're sort of one of the drivers against that, and having conversations with people that might make even you feel uncomfortable around it. And then just like a really good work ethic. But I feel like the work ethic piece is like across the board. If you're looking to be a leader in any respect, you have to have a very strong work ethic and just produce.
Yeah. So how do you balance all of it? Because most people locally are, HR managers or professionals for their specific company. Like, obviously, full disclosure, Krystle and I work together. We sit next to each other when she wants to come upstairs. And
when that seat is free.
And so I know how much you do every single day. Like, it's a big job. It's a hefty job. Not only do you just take on Bermuda, do Grand Cayman, you do Barbados, and you also do different areas of North America. Like, how do you balance all of that all the time?
One of the areas I'd probably say is that, our company being very large and global, they have a purposeful strategy to try and make the role that I do provide as much value as possible. So eliminating some of that transactional work that was always traditionally viewed as HR/personnel. Like, I don't do those elements anymore, right? So my focus is really on providing value to the businesses that I support, but also it kind of fits my personality. I like to touch new things a lot. I like to stay busy. When it's too slow, I get a bit kind of antsy, like I want to do stuff. So not every business has sort of the same busy periods.
Got you.
So it gives a good balance in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then even with the jurisdictions I support, the other day it was July 4th. So all of the U.S. was out. And then July 1st was Canada Day. So the Friday was Canada Day, so all of Canada was out. The Monday, July 4th, the U.S. was out. So I actually had it felt like a long weekend for myself where I wasn't getting any emails from those groups. And so, it, for whatever reason, whether it's divine intervention or just the strategic planning of Marsh, the the groups that I support, they find their own balance in a nice way.
Nice. So if you had to kind of like go back and like knowing everything that you know now, having the path that you've had, being at Marsh, previously being at Appleby, previously being at Key Tech, I think it was called at the time, would you do the same thing, or would you try something different?
I'm a big believer of no regrets.
Okay.
I've made a ton of mistakes.
Absolutely.
So would I necessarily make any changes? Probably not. Because I'm happy. I'm exceptionally happy with where I am right now. And each step took me to where I am. But in saying that, I was with Key Tech for 8 years, and I learned so much from that group. If I had to say any one thing, I probably would have ventured out sooner than I actually did. At the time that I left, there was, if anybody knows about telecommunications, they're always buying and selling, right? Like there's
always something going on.
Always, literally everything. When I went to Appleby and they ended up selling off their fiduciary business, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, "Oh wait, you guys aren't used to this type of environment? Oh, okay, sorry.
Let me help you out."
Yeah, legit. But at that time, they had just sold off BTC. They were acquiring Cablevision, but they couldn't actually like legally obtain Cablevision at that time.
Yeah.
So the staff population dramatically decreased because BTC isn't on our books anymore, and also we're not touching Cablevision. So it was probably about 6 months where I was genuinely actually bored.
Wow.
I didn't have as much work. We still had a full complement of HR within our team, and it was just that sort of transition period. And it wasn't until after the 6 months that I was like, oh, okay, I've had enough conversations with the HR leadership team to say, hey, like, I need something more and nothing's happening. And I do know there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I know Cablevision's coming on. But I think given my time, my age, just where I was in life, this is the time for me to move on. I wonder if I had made that decision maybe like a year earlier, how, like, that could have also been still a good time for me to have left.
But why do you think you didn't make that decision a year earlier?
I was very comfortable with where I was at. I had it's almost like a sense of loyalty because I had, when I came back from university, I actually really struggled with trying to find a full-time job.
Yeah, same.
And I feel like everybody likes to say this. In Bermuda, it's all about who you know, but honestly, that's that's everywhere. Let's be honest.
Not just Bermuda.
And I actually knew a supervisor over at M3 Wireless for their call center. I used to bartend with her, and so she actually gave me an opportunity to be a part of her team. And at the time, I was like, "This has not like, I do not want to be a call center rep. I don't want to be in a cell phone company. Like, what is my long-term vision here?"
Right.
And luckily I had a conversation with my uncle, and he was like, yeah, but that one company is a part of a group of companies. Like, this could be an opening for a whole other role. And I was like, fair point. I'll just see what it is. And also at the end of the day, I need a paycheck. So I'm just going to sort of take it. And I took it. I joined in April. By that January, I had moved into their HR department. And it was almost as if I had like this, I owed so much to that company because
sense of loyalty.
Yeah. They gave me my opportunity, and then being the type of organization that they are, they had so many different levels and types of colleagues. So I was learning about unionized issues versus non-unionized, and I was able to really like get a deep understanding of HR in that role. So, and I knew the team, I knew the colleagues. I really enjoyed working with everyone, and it at no point was I like, oh, okay, let me go. It was more, it sort of really came to the realization that I'm bored. There's not really much else I can do. And then there were also some shifts within our team, and when you have, I go to work every day because of the people that I work with. When you're no longer working with the people that you enjoy, it changes that whole dynamic. Absolutely. So that's where I got to that point. So for me, I've always taken the mindset that I respond as best as I can in the situation. Now, in hindsight, could I have made things differently? Yeah, but I never had that information. So that's why I tend not to have that sort of approach of, if I could change something, what would that have been? Because it would never take me to where I am now.
And you're very happy where you are now, which we've learned.
Yes. Yeah. Exceptionally happy.
Yeah. Very nice. No, just So, okay, so you're new mom. You have a almost 2-year-old, beautiful little baby boy, Andrew.
So precious. Yep.
Yes, learning how to talk and say all these different words. And you have a lovely husband, Peter. Like, how is family life? Tell me about that.
Family life is good. When me and Peter started dating, I was very honest with him around, like, how my personality is, my intention. I used to actually joke with him, but it kind of wasn't a joke, that, like, at some point I want to be I want to be premier. So you're going to have to be, like, the premier's spouse. So you need to...
The first husband?
Yeah. So you need to, like, just understand, like, that's just my personality. I like to be doing things. I like to be busy. So he's known from very, very, very early on that that it's not just like we're happy with what we're currently at and that's where we're going to stay. Even when we had bought our house and we were renovating, I had made a comment the other day, like, oh, so when are we buying our next one? And he's like, well, why do we need another one? And I was like, more. Yeah. We got to keep going. And and he just shook his head and he was like, oh yeah, I forgot. And it was, obviously we're not, because right now we're poor because we renovated the house.
Renovated the house.
But yeah.
And we live in Bermuda, and that's not cheap.
Yeah, no, really not. Especially with COVID and things like the delivery timelines getting impacted and all that other fun stuff. And then you find out, oh wait, your roof needs to be redone. Yeah, that's all the fun parts of renovating.
Homeownership.
Yeah, homeownership. Do you really want to do it?
Fun times. I'm not sure. We'll see. Maybe one day.
No, yeah, but there. He's always been a real partner for me. And then we were really clear about us wanting to have children. And we were trying for a bit. And then I think towards the end of 2019, I was just like, you know what? It is what it is. Just going to have faith, put it in God's hands. In January, we got pregnant. And then my little Andrew came along. And he's such an amazing kid. I feel like every parent says this, but like such an amazing kid. Like, I feel like he's been here before. There's stuff that he does. An old soul. Yeah, he is such an old soul. Like, he remembers another life, because the fact that he, like, will cough and cover his mouth, as an example. I'm like, nobody taught you that. Yeah. Nobody's, this is the first time you've ever been sick. So why do you know that? But yeah, he's so sweet, so kind, so empathetic.
How has being a mom changed you?
I think it's given me more balance on my personal life. Work was always the one thing I always had. And it really almost probably to an unhealthy level, kind of, I related myself to my work performance. So if I wasn't in a good space at work, then I'm not almost like a good human being. And then having Andrew, I remember having him and still like checking emails or whatever. And probably after maybe a month of having him, it was very much like, okay, no, I need to disconnect. And I remember coming back to work and actually being like, wait, I don't have the same feelings for my job that I had before I left. Like, I actually would rather not be here. I'd rather be with my kid. And I remember actually having a conversation with my boss around it. And I was just like, yeah, no, it feels wrong me saying this. And because it sounds so bad. Yeah. But like, I genuinely kind of don't even care how I perform.
You said that to your boss?
She's a female.
Okay.
and has a child. So I felt like it was a safe space. But like, yeah, in my head, it was very much like I'd show up. But if people emailed me or if they were asking something of me, I felt like I needed to be very responsive. And if I wasn't responsive, if I couldn't deliver, then that impacted like who I was as a person. Like I'm somewhat failing because I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah.
When I came back, it was very much like, okay, well, you're just gonna have to wait. If I don't have the information, or if I can't get to it right now, because I'm gonna actually go home at 5 to spend time with my kid, you're just gonna have to wait.
So it gave you a bit more balance.
Yeah, and it helped me sort of let go of that pressure that I was putting on myself, because it wasn't anybody else putting it on me, but I was just like, no, this doesn't mean that I'm not a good person. This means that I actually have a life outside of work, which is important.
Yeah, of course it's important. And I mean, once, as a single person, but once you kind of have a family and you get married and you have kids, like priorities change. Yeah. And I think people have to be accommodating for that as well.
Very much so.
They're not all the time, but your priorities change in terms of what's important to you, and you make time for what's important to you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I also then realized that my personality, or how I am as a person, I'm very much like, I kind of go all in where I am in the moment of time. And so being off, I took an extended leave. So I was off for 6 months. So I was all in that, almost like stay-at-home mom, but getting paid life. Yeah. Living it up. And then coming back and having to and have it be such a shift of, okay, now I'm back in. Luckily, I was working from home. It took me some time to actually then become all into the work life again.
And how long did you think that took?
It took me about a month. Okay. But again, it was also kind of like, you're coming out of the pandemic, but no, you're not, going back in. So there was, I have a really great opportunity at Marsh where I can work from home because I support so many jurisdictions. I don't necessarily need to be in the Bermuda office. I can work from home. I have that flexibility. I could still do kinder music with my kid. So it gave me a bit of flexibility in that respect, but then also kind of kept me it almost kind of kept me in that awkward space of like still wanting to be with my kid all the time, right? So then it wasn't until I actually went back into the office and I was like, oh wait, I'm way more productive in the office than I am at home. Same. That I actually got that like vibe back in and seeing people again. Yeah. Even though before, like the thought of going into the office and seeing people, I was like, they're gonna want to talk. I don't know what I want to do. But actually going in and it was like, oh, no, wait, I actually really do enjoy the people that I work with. Yeah. I forgot about that piece of things. And just getting out of the house was just also a key bit.
Kind of like the separation between mommy and Krystle.
Yeah, and just and also you're not just in your home, right? You're not just living and breathing in your home. Yeah. Whether it's mom, wife, cleaner, cook. Yeah. You're just not always there. It
breaks up the monotony of the day a bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what would you say is like one of your greatest fears, like out of everything that you do? Failure. Big job. Failure.
Always in the back of my mind.
Really?
Yes.
Why? You're so successful.
Yeah, but that could always change at any
point. But
at
this stage in your life, even if something were not to work out, God forbid, knock on wood, you still would not have failed at life.
I love that perspective. No, yeah, failure, even just in that moment, is a fear of like whether it's doing a presentation and that not going well, or applying for a job and you not getting it, or taking a trip and you're hoping your almost 2-year-old's gonna sleep through the night, and that doesn't happen. Like it. For me, it's always the fear of losing out in some way. And I think it may come from the fact that when I my upbringing was very much like a struggle, and I just never want to be in a space where I then have to revisit that struggle in life.
When you say struggle, like, what do you mean?
I mean, like, to the, having my mother work 3-4 jobs. I very rarely saw her.
Yeah.
I think, there's a story within our family where my grandmother took me away to visit my aunt who lives in Canada. Mm-hmm. And I came home calling her mom. Because that was essentially my mother figure, because my mom is trying to get other things done. But also at one point when I was graduating from Mount St. Agnes, we didn't know if I was going to go to university or not because we couldn't afford it. Yeah. And somebody actually assisted us with that piece of things. Mm-hmm. So like that, being in a position of uncertainty, of like wanting something but not genuinely not knowing that you can or will be ever get it. I just never want to be in that space of, like if I want to be able to take a trip, I want to be able to take a trip. Mm-hmm. If I want to renovate my house, or if I wanted to buy another house, or, if I want to have a second child, I just don't ever want to be in a position where I cannot do it because of uncertainty, whether it's financial, whether it's family dynamics, or anything like that.
So do you think that that's is one of the reasons why failure is such a big fear?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's just my core. That's just who I am as a person. So then
how do you finally feel accomplished and successful?
I will never feel accomplished. Like I was preparing for this morning, and I was talking to my husband about it.
This is why I hate sending the questions.
No, I was just talking to my husband. I was like, I know the type of questions that you're likely going to ask. And I was just like, but there is nothing that I'm trying to obtain. Like, I don't have a final earmark to get to. There's nothing on my checklist that if I reach to, I would tick it off and be like, cool, I'm done. I've done all my pieces. I can now sit back and relax. That's just not my hardwiring for whatever reason. And I don't know why it's like that.
No, I mean, no judgment. Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm any better in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what that looks like for me either, hence the question.
Yeah.
Because, we're always seeking it a bit. So
yeah, I always feel like there's just something else more. Now, like I said before, I'm exceptionally happy where I'm at, right? Like it's not like I'm unhappy and I feel like, oh, I need more so that I can be happy. I am happy with where I'm at. But I also know that there's a part of me that ends up being very comfortable in a space. And like, if I think about work, get very comfortable in space. Oh, I could do this with my eyes closed. Cool. I need some more of a challenge. So I need to keep learning, or I need to let's add another jurisdiction to my portfolio. Or
do you really need to?
No, I don't need to. Not
just
anymore.
Making sure we're on the
Not
same
right
page.
now. I can't do everything with my eyes closed. But like, that's where that sort of comes from. And so for me, like, when you asked what I wanted to be when I was younger, I had no idea. I just knew what strengths I had.
Got you.
Yeah, like what my strengths were. And even to now, like, what do I want to end up being? If somebody came up to me and was like, hey, because you're so helpful and so analytical and strategic, you'd be really good in this role. Why don't you come on over? I'd be genuinely interested, but I don't know what that is. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, yes, my next step is to change careers into role X. Because I just don't know.
It's Deshay friend coaching hat. It becomes really interesting, though, because you plan your life. Your job is to help other people think strategically.
Yes.
About their future, planning, development for their teams, for their businesses, where they see people on their teams being, what that looks like.
I know where you're going with this.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you do. So why not do the same for Krystle, the person?
But to me, I have. My strategy is for continuous growth. Now, I will sit and wait for that. I don't know what 10-year growth looks like for myself. I'm likely going to need to wait to see what path I'm on, what opportunities are available, to then make that decision in that moment. And so if I think about like what my role is in providing coaching and guidance to teams, it's very much that path.
Yeah.
Of, well, let's see what's out there. Now, there might be a space where like, oh, I totally know what the answer is. You've expressed interest. You have the personality. You now have the knowledge. You can be a broker. Like, okay, cool. I can give you that suggestion. But the moment they want to do something that's new, that's creative, that they have never done before, most times I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
It's kind of waiting for the opportunity and having broader conversations, because I don't always have the answers.
No, I mean, none of us always have the answers. It's always about being more resourceful and trying to find those answers, which is, I think, the better option than knowing everything.
Facts.
All right, so as we're wrapping up, it's two, my last question, definitely, what do you want to be remembered for? But the other thing that I kind of want to incorporate into that is right before is obviously Hustle Her is all about inspiring women, telling them about your stories. But what does being a woman mean to you? You think woman, what does that mean to you?
For me, I feel like as I've gotten much older, that doesn't sound very nice.
Not much older.
I know. I was like, oh wait,
that. I can't say much older.
As I've gotten older and much more mature,
there you go.
With my thinking, I've become more sensitive to understanding the barriers and the challenges that we face as women, that you face as a Black woman. And for me, being a woman, I'd love to see us in a space where that's no longer the case. And to answer your question around what I want to be remembered for, I feel like this might be a bad answer, but I don't really care about being remembered per se. A lot of what I do isn't for the recognition or anything like that. It's more so I don't fail, obviously. Yeah. We've encountered that. We've already covered that piece. But I genuinely love doing what I do because I'm helping others. And there's a part of me, and maybe it's my upbringing and, being with the church or whatever, helping with wanting to be acknowledged, that, no, then you're not really helping. Yeah, it's the selfish really part of it. Yeah. So for me, genuinely, I just want to help people. I want to help them grow, help them find whatever it is that they're looking for. And I think with being a woman, it's right now I feel like I'm in this space of wanting to make sure that where I can provide the changes that need to happen from a society standpoint or organizational standpoint, that we're actually that I'm helping in a way, that I'm forcing those conversations, that I'm creating that type of dialogue. That's kind of where I'm at currently in my head.
And you don't want to be remembered for anything. You don't care.
I mean, I'd love for people to be like, oh, she was an awesome person. Her family's amazing. Her kid's awesome. She was a good worker, but nothing. She was helpful, just generally speaking. And I think I can't really answer it because I don't know what my end goal is, right? I can't be like, oh, I want people to remember me for, the strategic work that I've done with Marsh, or I just want to be known. I just want to be remembered to be kind and a good person.
Which is nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that at all. There you go. Well, thank you, Krystle.
Welcome, Mr. Shay.
I appreciate you. The minute I told Krystle this was going to be on video, she immediately didn't want to do it anymore, but she did an excellent job.
I was fine with doing it in video, but I also just wanted to point out to Mr. Shay that her offer to me was just audio. And then
we are all evolving.
It took her a bit of a while to then schedule that just audio session, and now...
And here we are.
Visual. In 4K.
We lay in 4K. All right. Well, thank you again, Krystle. And I appreciate you spending some time with me today on the sofa.
On the
very nice.
Gray sofa. Enjoying my life.
An exclusive. We really do appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We had the lovely Krystle DaPonte on the podcast. Krystle is the senior HR manager from Marsh McLennan here in Bermuda, and she has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to strategic thinking, leadership, and helping leaders get the best out of their teams and coaching and all those things to help them to be great. If you want to learn more about Krystle, make sure you hit up the website, www.hustleheartpodcast.com. In the show notes, you'll see Krystle's bio. And if you want to get in contact with her to get some help, some different tricks and tips, she's excellent with those types of things. Thank you again so much for spending some time with us. I appreciate you. And thank you for listening to Hustle Her Podcast.